So, welcome, namaste. So, this evening, I have a couple of questions that have been emailed in. I also see your hand already up online. But before I go to the questions, I just want to take a moment, just for 15 minutes or so, just to recognize that which is fundamental about us, just to dive into what is real and permanent. So, if you want to join in with me and just immerse yourself in reality for a few moments, you're very, very welcome. And it can be a very, very simple thing, recognizing what's permanent and real about us. And it is that which does not go because it never arrived. And just simply as you're sitting here with me, we can just become aware of the space around our body, the space in the room that we're sitting in. Anything that comes and goes, our thoughts, our emotions, our bodies, even the room that we're sitting in, everything comes and goes, and it's arising inside some formlessness, some empty space that is all around us at all times. And that really is fundamentally what we are. It is unchanging, it is stable, it's not reaching for anything. So let's just take a moment to recognize, just sensing the empty space, the formlessness that's all around our body, the space in which our thoughts appear, spaciousness, and that even the room that you're sitting in is arising in this space, this spaciousness. And that everything that comes and goes arises in that. And just noticing this empty, not a thingness that is here is enough. Just bring attention first to this, recognizing it's here, it's always here, it's never changing. It's not a thing, it's not coming and going like a thought or an emotion or a sensation in our body. And because it's not coming and going and changing, we tend to overlook it. And it may seem unimportant and even irrelevant to us at first. But as we begin to just place attention gently on this emptiness, this not a thingness, out of which all things arise, you can begin to notice it has a soothing effect upon the body. It has, after a while, a soothing effect upon the mind even, because there is an absoluteness about this already. It just is. And it's not trying to improve itself. It's not a work in progress. It just is. Simply bringing attention to this empty nothingness, we begin to see that it isn't in fact irrelevant, or it isn't in fact unimportant. It's perhaps the most important thing we can ever recognize. Because even when our body goes, even when our thoughts go, this space of our being is constant. And far from just being empty space, it is pure, condensed intelligence, awareness, awakeness, pure presence, without the presence of any things yet, just presence, of this that is. This is your truest form, this formlessness, this shapelessness. And just coming to put a little bit of attention on this. And then just to subtly notice if attention goes back to some thoughts, if attention is drawn to a sound in your environment, it's okay. Or to an emotion coming or going, or to some sense inside, some restlessness, some sense that paying attention to this emptiness is boring or it's not getting us anywhere. Something maybe jumping up and down inside saying, yes, but. All these distract attention, and it's fine. We can just bring it back to this empty nothingness, this spaciousness of our being. There is a completeness and a fullness already present here. Just being curious about what this is. We can develop a curious nature. What really is this? Is it just empty space? Or could it possibly be something so different? Maybe we've been overlooking the most important thing. And it is good to get to know this empty nothingness, because it is essentially what we are, what our body arises out of, what our thoughts arise out of. Again, if attention's just wandered, just bring it back to the space around the body. You can do this with your eyes open or closed. Just spending a few moments recognizing the presence of something that isn't a thing and is always here. It can never be absent. Wherever there is a thing, an object, there is this spaciousness in which it arises and disappears. It has to be here first, before anything else. And in fact, first doesn't really mean anything to this spaciousness. It's just kind of always, there's an alwaysness about it. It's here, it's present, it's just being itself already. There is nothing else to do but just come to notice this. And just this simple thing is extraordinarily powerful at allowing this recognition to come that this is always here. And as we continue to bring attention to this, at some point it will become obvious that this is what you are. And then as we continue to bring attention to this, it'll become obvious that this is what everything is. Condensed nothingness looking like something. Made visible from invisible. Made tangible from intangible. Just resting in this with me. This is your essential nature. Your no shapeness. Where you don't have to be anything or anyone in particular. You're just being here, being this. And there isn't a you and this when we look. If you want to check it out, see if you can find a you and this spaciousness. It seems to be. but not actually so when we look. There is our body, our thoughts, sense perception. You're hearing these words and this spaciousness. So simple. It's just here. What does it want? What does it need? Is it changing? Is it suffering? Is it coming and going? Does it appear and disappear like a thing, like a thought? Is it affected by anything that appears in it? Just exploring these questions and bringing attention to this that is enough. Something profound is happening here. The spaciousness is recognizing itself now that it has the contrast of a body and a mind and the sense of time and change and becoming. It can recognize now through contrast its own completeness, its own formlessness. Notice it doesn't have a problem with anything arising out of it. It's not in conflict with any thoughts. It's not trying to get rid of anything, is it? It's just here, and it looks upon everything that arises in it equally. Just watching, just allowing pure intelligence before it's taken any shape, watching all these shapes appear. Thoughts, emotions, experiences, other beings. Simply just noticing this emptiness. Recognizing how it behaves with our thoughts. Recognizing how it is with our emotions. It's not pushing against, and it's not grabbing a hold. Everything is coming and going, equally welcomed, not labeled. Just by noticing this, we begin to automatically behave like this too. It feels so nice to just not manipulate and control and try to change each moment, not trying to get a different outcome. There's no need here to get ahead of the next moment or rewrite the previous moment. We're just here as this, in this. One spacious nothingness. Where is this spaciousness? And where isn't it? How far does it reach in all directions from your body? Is it stopped when it reaches a wall? Does it find an edge or a boundary? Is it affected by those things? And it's okay if we can't answer all of these questions. It's enough to notice this and just hear these questions. That's naturally eliciting answers coming. We're just relaxing. It's not important that we get these answers right now. Just relaxing as this, in this. Notice that your body and mind are still functioning perfectly while you notice this, all by themselves. Thoughts are still moving. Your lungs are still breathing. You can still hear and understand these words. Just a simple recognition of this that is. Just noticing if attention has wandered to thoughts, bringing it back to some noise or sound. We don't have to get rid of those. We just notice if attention moves when we can. This isn't hard work. We don't have to force the attention to stay in one place. We're just gently guiding it back when we notice, if we notice, that it's wandered back to an object, back to the coming and goingness of movement and change and time. Just developing a new habit to pay more attention to the space in which all things appear than the things themselves. It's simply a habit to pay attention to thoughts first, to things first. And any habit can be changed by cultivating a new one like this. This emptiness, this nothingness is already quiet. It's already peaceful. It is your home. It is yourself. Okay. So I would urge you to do this every day if you can, to fall in love with this. And it'll just become clearer and clearer that this is what you are. That the sense of being someone is just that, a sense only. There's nothing to be destroyed or removed or taken away. There's just this. Okay, so I have two questions that have been emailed in. So I'll start with reading these questions and then I'll go to Joanna. And as we're going through this question and answer session, see if you can keep your attention to whatever degree or just gently bring it back when it moves to that spaciousness. See if you can prove to yourself that you can still talk and interact and listen and even think while attention is on this emptiness. It doesn't have to automatically be the end of noticing this. So the first question says, I have a question about health. In one of your satsangs, you talked about the disease being resistant to fear or unresolved emotions. And then how about children with genetic diseases? Also, would like to know if there is any special diet you suggest in the path of truth, which will facilitate us. Many thanks. So the disease is not resistant to fear. It's more like a reflection of fear. If there is some belief that we're holding on to, especially if we're still believing and being separate to everything else, then there's going to be fear of some kind, some amount. And sometimes this reflects in our body as a disease or an illness. And that is the root cause of anything, any lack of well-being in any area of our life is some belief that we're holding on to that hasn't been examined, hasn't been questioned. So it's not resistant to fear or unresolved emotions. It is a reflection of that. Maybe that's what you meant. And you're asking here about children with genetic diseases. So a child may look like a child because they have a less mature physical body, but really they are coming into this lifetime with beliefs, or all of us have these ideas that we're not good enough, that we don't deserve to be happy, that we're not safe, we can't get what we want, and many other things that are passed from lifetime to lifetime. We're not a separate being, we never have been. But while we've really been convinced that we are, we have experienced many separate lifetimes in this idea that we are a separate being. We have this sense of having traveled for many lifetimes. And along those lifetimes, even though we've never actually been separate, we've lived as if we were. And we've had these experiences based on what beliefs are deep inside us, as the infinite spaciousness. So they may look like our children, these beings, but they are already coming into this incarnation with beliefs that they are hoping to bring to a resolution to. And everything that we're dealing with in this lifetime right now, in this body mind vehicle right now, is a reflection of these beliefs that we've brought into to deal with. So they're only children in a way in terms of their physical body. They are the infinite being experiencing itself as a separate being, just as we were. So also would like to know if there's any special diet you suggest in the path of truth which will facilitate us. Many thanks. Well, a diet of truth is always very, very helpful. A diet of satsang. And in terms of food, I don't really like to label or suggest anything like that, because I remember from my own journey that I went through a period of eating very, very healthily and cutting out everything that I thought was really, really bad for me. But I was doing that from a place of fear. I was still really saturated with fear. And so we can eat the perfect diet on paper and yet be eating it inside an atmosphere. It's digesting inside our body, inside this atmosphere of fear or anger or something. And that is going to override the benefits of this beautiful food that we're eating anyway. And the opposite is true. You know, we can eat something perhaps that's less than healthy once in a while. And in the energy field of love and compassion and peace, any harmful effects of that will be nullified. Having said that, it's always good to have a healthy diet anyway. It's something that we can all work upon, but I don't really like to say that you should or shouldn't eat this or that or the other. It's not really what I want to be or to do. What I will say is that your body has a natural intelligence of its own. It is this spaciousness condensed to look like a human body. It is this beingness. And as we really get in touch with our body, it will tell us what it wants more and more. It will tell us what it needs, what it would benefit from, if we're really sort of open to listen to that. And we can guarantee that if we say, okay, I'm not going to eat this thing or that thing, the first thing we want as human beings, you know, when I tried to stop eating chocolate once, you know, immediately the first thing I wanted was that. And I found it much more efficient in my own pathway to just allow my diet to change naturally by itself, out of self-respect, out of love for the body, rather than out of fear or feeling like I should eat differently, or, you know, that it's not safe to eat this particular thing or that thing. So I hope that helps to, you know, intuitively what your body wants. If we kind of get quiet and really listen, your body will tell you. You'll be walking past something or you'll see something, you just immediately, well, I really fancy trying that tonight. Okay, so the second question. Hi, Helen. Thank you so much for answering my question last week. Your thoughts are greatly appreciated. The eternal I am presence is felt here, and within it are appearances of sensations and solid clumps of fixed, static, impenetrable energy on the left side of my body and in the area of my head, face, neck, arm, side, waist, and leg. Even though I know that my body is just an imagination, a sensory experience, within whatever this mysterious expanse is, it feels as though these clumps of energy want to dissipate back into the light. I have meditated deeply into the spaces with the clumps, but still the energy reclumps. It feels so restricted. In my story, I had invasive brainstem surgery years ago, which may have left nerve damage, which could be a physical cause of these sensations of blockage and stuckness. But I feel deeply that any apparent physical ailment stems from the energy body, just cycles of genetic and karmic patterning. I suppose I'm asking if anything in the way of advice or pointing comes to you for further dissipation or deepening, allowing or opening into these karmic clumps of energy as my sight in my left eye is starting to be affected, and I don't feel, excuse me, I don't feel inclined to explore neurosurgery yet. I have explored how the sensations make me feel and question that. The sensations feel as though what should be free flowing energy is stuck or stifled and needs more space. So I question, can what I really am as boundless energy ever be stuck or squashed or limited? As I ask repeatedly, but the sensations of stuckness in these areas and being pinched off seem so resistant, or rather they hold attention of consciousness so stubbornly that contemplation does not seem to open them up or dissipate them. Any thoughts would be greatly appreciated. Much love and gratitude. So for me, this experience is you're trying to get rid of something. You're trying to get rid of something in the energy system. These clumps, as you've called them, of sort of heavier energy, slower energy, these karmic patterns. And sometimes just the act of trying to dissolve them is going to sustain them at this point. The more that we've seen what is really true about us, the more it can seem that we really have to get rid of what's untrue. But if you can see, if you look from the, I would suggest looking from the spaciousness, this unknown mystery, as you called it, boundless energy. If you look from that place, is there anything for you to get rid of? Does it have an issue with these energies? Does it see clumps of energy? Or does it just see something different? What's your experience when you look from that place at these? Are there any karmic patterns even, or beliefs that are affecting this boundless infinite space of our being? And as you look from there, how does this handle it? How does this boundless energy, this infinite space of being, or this nothingness that we've been calling it tonight, how does this handle anything that the mind says is unwanted? And sometimes it's just our insistence that this is affecting me and that it should go away that is sustaining it. Is there a problem with this from where you're really looking from? So just to investigate that. Is there anything for me to get rid of? When I notice the spaciousness of my being, objects, sensations, even these clumps of energy can just arise in it. And it is not agreeing with the idea that it's affected or restricted or impeded by this energy. It is not. It's only our mind or our egoic sense of self that's saying, this is affecting me and I need these to go. So it's kind of ironic that when we don't need them to go, that's when they dissolve. When we've investigated deeply, is this really affecting me? In truth, you can only really say it's affecting your body. You can't actually really say it's affecting you. Right now, it may be affecting your body, manifesting in a physical way. But as you get clearer from where you're really looking from, is there still an issue, anything to get rid of? How does it, the real you, see this particular issue? And can you stay with that a little bit more? What we do is we go, well, there's nothing wrong here in this boundless space. There's nothing to get rid of. And then we go back to our normal state, our normal way of looking, and see these things that we think we need to get rid of. And mind says, well, when I get rid of these clumps of energy, then I'll be in this spaciousness all the time. But it's the other way around. I'll be able to stay there all the time. It's really the other way around. It's when I recognize that nothing can stop me from being this all the time, then anything that needs to resolve will resolve in that, in our not needing it to go. It goes by itself, but we don't need it to go, then is the difference. So I hope that helps you to look in a particular direction with this, and just don't entertain the idea that this is affecting you, because it really isn't. It's affecting your body right now, that much is agreed. I'm not denying that at all. But that is a residual reflection of the idea that this is affecting you, and it will begin to dissipate as you see clearly here. Lovely. Okay. So we'll go to Joanna whenever you're ready. Thank you for waiting. You're still muted there. There we go.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
Such a pleasure to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. How are you doing?
I discovered you in the last few months on YouTube, and I found your teachings or way of presenting information so helpful. So thank you. And it's not even noon where I am, Vancouver, Canada. So, and as you were talking about the last person with the clumps of energy, I was replacing that issue with the thing that I came to today, and actually throughout your talk was able to view it from a different perspective, which in a way has already kind of dissolved the question that I had. But just in case I regret that I didn't take the opportunity to ask you.
Well, it's always good to go through it again anyway, isn't it? You know, it's always good to kind of be conscious of what's just happened, isn't it? To talk it through. What happened differently this time than before. You know, it's good to be sort of able to tell yourself that, isn't it? Then later on, if you need to recall that and apply the same thing again, which is quite likely, you know, just to see if you're going to play with it again, it'll come back.
I love your gentle approach. I love your gentle approach. It's so humane, because we're all, you know, struggling with whatever it is, and it feels like you're so able to be with and remember and speak to the contracted.
Yeah, I remember. It's like a distant memory, but I can't really remember how bad it felt, but I remember it was pretty awful. You know, it's like, you know, literally waking up out of a bad dream, isn't it? You remember it was pretty awful and you don't want to have it again, but it starts to fade, you know, which is good. Yeah.
So my question is about fear. And when I was in my late teens and early 20s, which is quite a number of years ago now, I had a series of traumatic events. And as a result of that, I had what I now know to be an awakening. But at the time, all I knew is that everything was terrifyingly unfamiliar.
Yeah.
And I had no explanation for it except for that I was losing my, you know, this terror that arose that I would be losing my mind.
Yeah.
And I, you know, went to go and get help for it, and nobody really knew what I was talking about. And I think what has drawn me to non-duality is that it's and that's been about 3 years now, it's the first place that experience has been spoken to and that I can understand it. But nonetheless, the fear arises. So I think what happened in response to that fear was an extra hanging on to form,
Yeah.
extra hanging on to thoughts, and creating a reality that would keep me safe from this great vastness of nothing that I experienced. And also the other experience I had was the absolute merging with anybody and everything,
Mm-hmm.
because there was no sort of reference point for me as a human anymore, because all of what I had known had fallen away from every
And
direction.
that really can be quite scary if you've got no, if you've been sat in satsang for 2 years, listening about it, hearing about it, and then suddenly you have that experience, it's different. But if you experience that and have no reference point to explain it, then it can leave some. It's very, very common. There's two types of people that come to satsang. One of those looking for the same experience that has been described, and those that are trying to explain what's already happened to them to understand it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
So even just speaking about this now and your response makes me want to cry. It's like the hidden, unknown, unaddressed thing that has sat there, like, what the hell, in sort of a frightened ball. And so I do really appreciate just what you said. And
It helps to also realize that the first time we experience that vastness, that emptiness, um, whether we have a frame of reference for what it is or not, it seems to be an experience. It seems to come and go because we are still generally functioning from our egoic sense of self. That's who our identity is. And the egoic sense of self works in duality, which is perfectly how it works. But what it does mean is it experiences this and it thinks it's other than the normal state of consciousness, different to, separate from. And it really feels that there are two distinct states, my normal everyday waking state consciousness and this weird thing that I just experienced that has no reference points in it at all. So that's why the fear arises, because our egoic sense of self says, for that to come back, I'm going to have to disappear. And as you said, there's just no trace of any separateness or humanness there at all. But as you see that the fullness of that awakened state, when it really manifests in a full awakening, there is your reference point is as that spaciousness, but there's also the egoic sense of self playing as well, so that you can remember your name and what time you need to be at work and what you need to get from the supermarket. And it's not one or the other, it's both. They're really one, but you get what I mean. It's we don't have to get rid of anything, which is what the fear is about. I really, really want this because it feels so good, but if I wake up fully, I'm going to have to lose me as well, in that I'm going to lose something vital. Of course, ego panics then. It brings about a lot of fear. It did for me for a good long while, until I realized, it's I can have my cake and eat it.
what's that? Sorry.
I can have my cake and eat it, so I
Right.
recognize my every awareness, and I also get to feel like someone somewhere at the same time, temporarily, while the body's here. And that those aren't in conflict in the deepest. When we first see the deepest place of our being, it seems like one or the other, and it seems to come and go, doesn't it? And then we lose sight of that big expansive place, and we're back into the normal way of perceiving again for a while. But it's both, it's always both, because you are this vast expansive being also appearing to be someone somewhere, and it wants to enjoy that. So just dealing with that fear, we can just challenge the core assumption that causes that fear, which is that I've got to lose this familiar version of me to experience this bigger version. Well, we believe that they're two, and it's one or the other, ego says. It's always looking for which one is right, But from the perspective of that spaciousness. It's saying both is fine. It's absolutely. The only difference is you know yourself first and foremost to be that spaciousness, so that you're not scared of the body mind going when they go. You can enjoy them while they're here, but you don't feel that you have to pick one or the other. So
thank you. That was super helpful. I feel like you spoke to my trembling 19-year-old.
I've been right there. It took me 2 years to figure out what the fear was, and then to how do I resolve this. So I really remember it's very, very common because we're used to working in opposites and duality, hot and cold, good and bad, wanted, not wanted. And the last place ego does that is ego or self. So it thinks it's going to have to disappear. And then we end up with all these crazy things like I've got to die or demolish my ego or something before I can wake up. And that terrified me. Absolutely terrified me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for expressing
Really
inclusiveness so beautifully and all the time.
Well, thank you. It's the thing that really held me back, so it's why I'm kind of always very passionate about it. If there's nothing to get rid of, we're just kind of upgrading our sense of self, then it's a different process and we won't resist it so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is what Jesus taught.
Yeah.
And that kind of, So thank you so much, Helen.
You're very welcome. Nice to talk to you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. And nice to see all these other people too.
Okay, so Ryan, whenever you're ready.
Hi, Helen. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah. How are you doing?
Okay, good. Yeah, pretty good. That raise hand button took some finding, but we got there.
It's sneaky. I'm sure they change it every week.
I remember it being a lot easier. I'll try and be short and straight to the point. Basically, I'm a young guy, and I've been watching quite a few interviews on Conscious TV and a few other places. Reading, various books and stuff like that. All this spirituality stuff is resonating with me. A lot of this talk of trying to find like an inner peace and trying to, that inner voice that always tells you, but are you good enough? You're not good enough. Always gone on all the time. Just trying to find peace with that is very resonating. So I guess my question is, where's a good place to start? I've been trying to meditate. I'm not been spending as much time as I probably should. But I forget the chap's name, but I found a monk on YouTube who just guiding through meditation, and I feel relaxed at the end of it. But I don't feel like I've had that breakthrough moment, where it's like, okay, this is what it's about.
Just I would suggest not looking for any particular breakthrough at first. Just you'll know what you're naturally drawn to. If you're drawn to something, sometimes it's just this pull inside, isn't there? Like I want to really try this, give this a go. And there are meditations on my YouTube channel as well, guided meditations. But your own intuition is always going to be, you probably have a sense of where you feel more pulled to right now. That kind of guidance is always there for us. And just enjoy the meditation because, enjoy it as much as you can rather than trying to get somewhere with it.
Yeah.
If awakening eventually is going to give us exactly what we can experience in this moment anyway, which is just relaxation, joy, a sense that everything's really okay, quiet knowingness in the background that gets louder and louder, that there isn't really anything wrong with me, actually, imagine there was. So just enjoying that to whatever degree you can in this moment, if that's in a formal meditation or, just sitting for 10 minutes a day. Start from where you're at and work with whatever desire is there, whatever you feel you want to experience. And it's really just about relaxing and enjoying. That's doing, you wouldn't be drawn to a satsang like this if you weren't already in a process of waking up. So you don't need to strive hard to make that happen.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Wonderful. Good to meet you.
You too.
Barbara. So we'll take the questions that are up at the moment, and we'll leave it after those. So lovely. Whenever you're ready, Barbara.
So I've had a few traumatic kind of days, really. Oh, sorry, now I'm actually speaking to you. I'm feeling really stuck.
It's okay. Take your time.
It was a rejection from a family member, which came really like a bolt out of the blue, and I wasn't really able to process why it happened or what exactly it was that I seem to have done that caused this reaction. Mm-hmm. And so I've been working through the layers of that there's no other there, and there's no cause and effect, and that it has to be a reflection of an unconscious belief that hasn't actually been brought out or properly seen or whatever. And all of that's been very, thank you so much, just made a huge difference. It's been very clear that feelings dropped away after seeing those unconscious beliefs, which are really that feeling that in some way that I'm intrinsically faulty and bad and don't deserve to be loved and so on. Looking at it all again, it's very clear that that's why that situation had to be mirrored back to me. And then this morning, really, after listening to your exit door to suffering satsang, I could understand that I'd never really properly applied what you said in there in terms of really, really, really deeply going into it and asking, and ended up in absolute beautiful peace and space with no suffering and no possibility of ever having been separate from anything.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it feels like only feels like, even I know it can't be different, that feeling has kind of dissipated, and there's quite a lot of fear back. I've been very shocked by what's happened. I feel.
What's the emotions around it? You've mentioned fear and a sense of rejection. Is there anything else that comes up with it?
Terrible, terrible sadness.
Sadness.
Absolutely gutted and heartbroken. I'm heartbroken that's how he sees me.
So
I know I keep saying that it's not really real.
So this is an area where you can love yourself a little bit more right now. Okay, so there is the recognition of the place. As you said, there's a place, that spaciousness that we looked at tonight, that where there isn't any other being and there isn't any capacity to suffer there at all. Okay, and then you also seem to experience this other state, let's call it other, even though it really isn't, where there really does seem to be someone who has done something that has really upset you, caused you this feeling, And what I want you to do over the next couple of hours and days is to recognize that both of these states, for want of a better word, can be simultaneously present at the same time, okay? So this sense of this empty, quiet space of being where there's never anything wrong, and there never could be anything wrong, and there's nothing outside of me to cause me any suffering, nothing separate to me can be there. And at the same time, there can be a sense of there's something that really needs resolving here with this other being. Can you see what I'm pointing to? You're trying to experience one or the other of these. And of course, we want to stay in that place where it doesn't hurt at all. But simply now by choosing and trying to stay there, it's kind of throwing you back out into this usual, normal state of consciousness?
I can recognize that it's, what I want to say is where I felt I was this morning was the stateless state.
Yeah.
There was absolutely nothing. It was so beautiful.
And how would it be, that stateless state, how would it be with these thoughts and emotions when they come up? What would it do with them?
They didn't seem to be as if they could really come up.
But if they did, let's just theoretically, does it have to be absent of thoughts and emotions? Or can the stateless state just be here? And what would it do if something arose inside it, like some emotion or some thoughts? Say again, sir?
It's not affected at all.
And most importantly, it wouldn't be trying to get rid of anything, would it? And of course we want to feel better. Of course you want to feel better. But the more intelligent way now to make that happen, it is to notice those thoughts and emotions and open up into recognizing the space in which they're appearing as well. Allow them to, when they arise like that, you can allow them to point you back to the spaciousness. And in doing that, you're not rejecting those at all. You're not trying to get rid of them. You're not saying that these phenomenal thoughts and emotions have to go before I can experience this real place where I'm immune to suffering there, you know? Can you get a sense of it? Just allowing the emotion, whatever the emotion is that's coming up, and then what is this appearing in this emotion? As soon as you kind of get clear, and if there's a big intensity of emotion, that's fine. Let it play. But as soon as you kind of get clear enough to kind of ask, what is this arising in? What's aware of this emotion? And just let it point you back to that silent space of being in which it's appearing. And then we're not in conflict with the phenomena, with the emotions and everything. We're also not suppressing them or denying them. We're also not identifying with them. We're just going to be allowing them to arise, and then they can dissipate in that space. It's just noticing these moments where we tend to favor formlessness over form, saying that this is better and that one's worse, and I want this to go and I want to stay here. But the very act of doing that is dividing us into two artificially, and that's why it hurts.
Okay. I need to listen to this again, because I'm aware that there's how can I put it? There's a kind of a desperation to get away from the pain.
And that's understandable, and it's natural, and it's human, and we all have it. Is just to realize that the quickest way to get away from the pain is to recognize the space it's appearing in. We've had this idea that the way to get rid of pain, or the way to get back to the spaciousness, is to push away whatever's arising in this moment that we don't want.
Yes.
So instead of doing this now, we're just learning to do this, you know. Okay, this is appearing inside this. It's going to have the same effect. You're going to begin to feel better, even if the negative emotions and all that are still going on. But you're not you're not trying to get rid of anything, so you won't feel divided into two. Because the moment you push against something, there is me and what I want to get rid of.
Yeah.
And we're emphasizing then that there's this division. And that is the only thing that ever hurts us, this sense of being divided into two, or many, or millions. But you get the idea.
I do.
Lovely.
Thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome. Have a play with that and see how you get on. Yeah.
Thank you. God bless. Love
Lovely.
you.
Okay, Sophie, whenever you're ready.
Hi, Helen. Thank
Hi.
you.
How are you doing?
Hi. Okay. Yeah, it's really following what people have been saying tonight. What as well with the with the fear and the sense of trying to change your experience. But what has come to me very sort of strongly is this seeing that everything is story based and mind, to do with the thoughts. Everything is coming from what I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
And how the identity is so based in that small, separate self that is very attached to everything, because that it's quite happy to create a suffering self, because that's, at least it's something, at least it's got an identity.
Yeah.
So it's this kind of shift of identity that is, I know I'm probably saying it slightly differently to
I keep losing you there, Sophie. Can you hear me? I think we may have lost you completely. Okay, we will maybe come back to Sophie in a minute. We'll go to Colleen whenever you're ready.
Hi, Helen.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah. Well, of course, so appreciative of you, and your simplicity. And I was thinking about, well, maybe Helen could give me a simple little tagline on this stuff that I'm thinking. Since I became aware that there's not two things, it's pretty ordinary now. I'm not having these giant spiritual experiences. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, I'm upset and now I'm crying, but underneath that, but what I am is what I am. And God, I hate trying to explain this stuff. Before it was, before it was two things. It was like, oh, I've lost it now, and now it's back, and now it's integrating, and it's like, that's it. I mean, some days it's kind of like that. It's like, that's it, and but it's also incredible. It's such a paradox, right? It's
very
ordinary,
normal,
but it's
very normal
amazing.
and ordinary, and at the same time extraordinary, isn't it? And amazing.
Yes, because I'm going through a divorce right now with this crazy husband. And I mean, this kind of stuff I would have had stories about and just been, unbearable, talking to all my friends in AA about my horrible ex, and the story. And, and that's the other thing too. I listen to people talk about these energy surges and all this stuff. And I haven't really had that. And it occurred to me the other day, I've been in AA for 27 years, and I've actually been doing what you're supposed to do in AA and like take your inventory and all this stuff. And to me, it's very similar to, in a way, except for the fact that I'm God.
The 12th step, is it slightly different?
Big difference.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But at the same time, in AA, you're taught to surrender and turn your will and your life over. What else is there? If you're turning your will and your life over, what else is there, right? And I've been doing that for all these years and taking my inventory and crying and having full access to my feelings. So I wonder sometimes if I'm not having the energy surges or whatever, because I've just been doing this flowing of this emotion for a lot of years. And the difference now is that, you know, I go to AA now and I go, these people all think they're their minds. That's they're just trapped in their heads, you know? And at first I was rejecting it, but now it's just kind of, because it's stuff is integrating. I learned service in AA. So now I'm just there to, like, you know, be a presence or whatever, you know. But I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is it's just so ordinary in so many ways. And I haven't had any of these big spiritual blowout things, except for the fact that I've surrendered for 27 years and I've been taken care of.
Yeah.
So whatever that is, right? I started to separate that and this, and it's all the same. Yeah. Like your question, is it true for me now? I'm using that now with my husband, and it occurred to me, this feels just like thy will, not mine be done. I mean, basically.
Yeah. And it's important to recognize that we can have, you know, big flashy spiritual experiences. I've seen people have experiences where they couldn't stand up, you know, they were just like on the floor in a heap of tears and laughing and crying and other things all at the same time. And you think, wow, they've really seen something there, you know, like they're going to be, that's it now. And then the very next day, they're back with the same story that they had 5 minutes before. You know, and I've also seen the opposite, which is somebody just very, very quietly sitting with a cup of tea. It was the same for me, just suddenly realizing I've been making all of this up, all these stories, you know, and they were never true. And it really taught me that the most profound realizations are often very quiet, and the most stable of awakened states is it looks very ordinary, it looks very normal, you know, it's not flashy in that way, you know, but it is gradually, day by day, you'll be feeling more peace, more love, more joy, experiencing more abundance, more of a sense of compassion for other beings. That'll just be very gradually at first, and then faster and faster, just being more and more each day. And that's really what we're looking for as evidence of a deeply embodied awakening, from my perspective at least. You know, experiences come and go, don't they? Good, bad, and ugly, and heavenly and hellish. They'll come and go. It's really,
this is what's happening. It just feels like I have some other people I talk to, and I say, how is everybody not seeing this? It's so obvious. What else would I be?
It's not obvious until it's obvious, though, is it? And that's why,
right?
You know, we it seems extraordinarily real when I keep experiencing my stories, and I think those stories are truth. Then we're stuck there, aren't we, for quite some time, because it may not even occur to me to question, maybe this isn't reality that I'm experiencing. Maybe I'm experiencing a virtual reality. You know, it takes a while to kind of come to that conclusion, to even ask that question. And
well, it just took, this last year has been the most intense suffering I've ever experienced ever. So that's what did it.
Yeah. And the self just goes, you know what? I've had enough of that. I'm out of it. See ya.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, really?
That's too much. I'm done now. It was fun for a while, but not anymore. I'm off. Yeah. So
well, thank you so much for everything you're doing. I'm watching your subscribers go up, and that's really cool.
Thank you. It's just you know, a stable awakening is a very quiet, normal thing when it happens to you. You know, in a way, in a strange way, isn't it? It's just and more, it's not surprising either. It's more and more it settles into, well, I've always been this. Right. You know, I've always been this, and so it's not the shock of it, and everything wears off after a while, and you just kind of, this is what everyone is, and they'll see it when they're ready to see it, and it's okay. Wherever they're at is where they need to be at any particular moment. And wonderful.
Thank you.
Good to talk to you.
You too.
Okay, so we will leave it there for this evening. Hopefully we can try Sophie again next time. Thank you for joining me. Namaste.